had a Christian background, but I wasn't really like going to church. Growing up, I was introverted. It was just hard for me, like, to make friends. I felt like an outsider, but I always felt as if like God had a higher purpose for me. Through high school, I felt more comfortable being in Adventist school. It was like a family being at Crawford. Like, I met my boyfriend there, I met other friends. But I think once I graduated, that kind of outcast feeling carried with me. When I was 18 years old, I was diagnosed with major depression. In high school, I got better, then it got worse again at 22. I'm 26 now and it's a lot better, but I still have to manage it every day. So instead of like just putting that situation behind me, I like to speak about mental health as a Black woman, because I feel like there's power in our stories. We can help a lot of people with what we go through. I know, like, mental health in the Caribbean, there's a stigma. So speaking about it can really help others.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Meta Transitions. Today we have with us Bria Barrows. Bria has an Instagram account called Grow to Glow Women. Bria is also a student at York University. Welcome to the show, Bria.
Thank you, Tricia. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into it. Bria, what is your story?
Okay, so my story, do you want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah, wherever
Or,
you want to start. Yeah.
okay, well, the inspiration behind my page is just inspiration for people who are starting out in their journey of being a Christian. So for me, you and I, we kind of realized that we know each other because you're
Yes.
Adventist. I went to an Adventist high school, Crawford Adventist Academy. And I never grew up Adventist. I never, like most Black families, I had a Christian background, but I wasn't really like going to church.
Mhm.
I met my boyfriend in high school. We were always friends before we got into a relationship.
Yeah.
Growing up, I was introverted. I still am mostly introverted, even though like I love people.
Yeah.
Um, but as I matured through life, I found that like it was just hard for me, like, to make friends. I felt like an outsider. Like, I
Mhm.
always felt like I was an outcast. But I always felt as if like God had a higher purpose for me. I always felt that even when I was younger, like in elementary, I wasn't the type to do things just because other kids were doing it. Like, I just feel like God's covering has been over me throughout my whole life.
Mhm.
And even though I had my struggles, and that's seriously how I feel about it. But like growing up, it was difficult. Like, kids would pick on me in elementary school,
Mhm.
like, for being nerdy. Um, yeah, it was hard. And then going through high school, I felt more comfortable being in Adventist school. It was like a family being at Crawford. Like, I met my boyfriend there, I met other friends. It was a great environment. But I think once I graduated from Crawford, I think that kind of outcast feeling carried with me once I graduated from high school, because I was just like, everybody's partying, everybody's, not that it's a bad thing, but it's just like I wasn't led to do those things. I was mostly just like, I'm just gonna do what I want to do. I just want to read my books. I just want to, and it felt weird to feel like I was an outcast from everybody. I just felt like making friends and relating to people my age was a lot different for me, and that kind of weighed on me. When I was 18 years old, I was diagnosed with major depression.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of has to do with my brain chemistry, probably, because mental health or depression can be caused by chemical imbalances.
Mhm.
But I feel like now that I think about it, maybe me being introverted and what you would say shy and not having anyone to relate to or having all these feelings inside kind of contributed to that as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I was diagnosed with depression at 18. It kind of got really bad when I was in high school. I got better, then it got worse again at 22. I'm
Mhm.
26 now and it's a lot better, but I still have to manage it every day.
Yeah.
So instead of like just putting that situation behind me, I like to speak about mental health as a Black woman, because I feel like there's power in our stories. We can help a lot of people with what we go through. And especially as a Black woman, or as Blacks in general, like, mental health in the Caribbean, there's a stigma. So speaking about it can really help others. So I guess I would say that's my story. And then in terms of inspiration for the Grow to Glow, I got saved last year, meaning I wanted to take my walk with God more seriously. I just felt like this feeling of me being an outcast, and when you're in your 20s, you want to kind of fit in.
Yeah.
especially as a woman. You want to feel like it's hard to be grounded, especially when we have the media around us for influences, social media. And I felt like God was tugging on my heart to just pull into him.
Mhm.
And that kind of saved me. So I was like, I'm gonna be a Christian. And I haven't started the path of like going to church yet. That's like me being, honest, but it's
Mhm.
like I eventually will. But I wanted to start the page for people who have just been saved and they want to grow their relationship with God, and just have a page where it's like okay to be a young 20 something woman who's Christian. Like
Yeah.
it's okay. Yeah.
It says normalizing, being who you are. And I really like
Yes.
that, right? So that idea of being who you are at the stage that you're at with the
Mm.
beliefs and values that you hold, and wanting to hold space for people
Yes.
who, maybe in that situation. So 20
Yeah.
somethings who are women, who are Christians, who just started their walk with God. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you could possibly have mental health. And you know what? It's
Yes.
okay. Right?
Yes, it is okay. Like even if it's not just mental health, even if it's feeling like I never fit in. Like I just don't want any other woman to feel like God doesn't have a purpose for them or God doesn't care about them, because I know what that feels like. Like I know what it feels like, and especially dealing with depression, it's like
Mhm.
those feelings can make you think like, oh, maybe, I wasn't meant to be here or something, but like your story has purpose. So it's like you don't have to fit in to be validated. Like God validates you and he has a plan for you. So that's why I wanted to bring that message.
I like that. You don't have to fit in to be validated because
Yeah.
God validates you. Wow, really like that so much. No, really appreciate you sharing your story and speaking up about, this issue specifically. Because I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I think women in general, we sort of dig into ourselves, right? And we sort of do this comparison thing between each other.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
competition is,
Yes. It's like,
right?
I think what it is, like Tamara Mari, I watched The Real. I
Mhm.
watched an episode and she was saying women are very what is it? They're very critical of themselves,
Yeah.
which we are. Like we're very critical of ourselves naturally. So it's like when we see another woman, automatically we want to compare. And in our head, it's like she looks better than me or
Mhm.
I'm not enough, which isn't true. Like we all have our worth and our value. And that's something that I'm continuously working on. Like even with my mental health, it's like I have to like you have to work harder to actually uplift yourself. And I think coming from like a Caribbean background, I don't know if maybe you can relate.
Mhm.
It's like we didn't really have affirmations kind of thrown at us when we were younger. Like
Mhm.
parents telling us like you can do it. Not I had that, like you can do it, you're smart. But kind of
Mhm.
like when it comes to our beauty, it's just like you're beautiful, you're fearfully, wonderfully. We didn't have that. And it's not to bash our parents, but it's like they didn't get that themselves. So
Mhm.
it's like it's a heavy burden to have to do self-love for yourself, because it's like
Mhm.
you're building up yourself every single day, and as a young woman that can be very difficult to do.
It's
Yeah.
true. That is so true. And you talk
Yeah.
about sort of the history of, Caribbean, individuals or generations of, Caribbean individuals. And yes, I think you're right. There is sort of this idea of pushing intellect, pushing,
Yeah.
things that you can do, right? Actions and stuff like that. Whereas the idea of like maybe physical beauty isn't something that
Yeah.
is told to a darker skinned person,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
you'll hear the songs about brown skin
Yep.
and
Browning.
browning and light skin and
Yep.
all these things, and it's we don't recognize how sometimes colorism can be a huge factor
Yeah.
in women not feeling appreciated, right?
It's huge, Trisha. Like self-esteem, like now that I'm like 26,
Mhm.
like I even have my mirror. I have like affirmations everywhere. Like I have to look into the mirror, like affirm myself. Like it's difficult and it's important, because it's like when you go out and you face the world, you're not necessarily gonna get that. You're not necessarily gonna get people who tell you, oh, you're worth it, you're amazing. Sometimes people don't have it themselves, so they don't have it to give to you.
Mhm.
It's a process for all of us. So I feel like having it in the home and for yourself, it really is important. Yeah.
Yeah, so creating that, positive affirmation, and it sounds like you're saying practicing this positive
Yeah.
affirmation daily is something that can
Yes.
help you to create that practice for yourself so you can
Yeah.
encourage yourself. And
Yeah.
then, you will be able to develop that and then pass that on to the next
To
generation
someone
of
else.
women.
Yeah. Cause like I'm still on the journey where like I'm not perfect. None of us are. I still try to do it every day. But like you were saying with competition with women, I feel like it's kind of it's not, it's an insecurity thing. It's just like not feeling like, and also like a scarcity mentality, like there's not enough for any of us, not enough for all of us, especially when it comes to like our success. Like another woman gets successful, it's like, oh, now she's my competition, I'm not enough, she did it first. But it's like, we can help each other. Like I feel like that's a lesson that I had this year, like meeting other women. It's like they taught me that, like, you know, we can help each other get there. So
Yeah, so it's removing that mentality, as you say, a scarcity mentality. In Caribbean, we call it crab in the barrel
bucket,
mentality.
yep. I was talking about that with my dad the other day. Yep.
Yes, right. So
Yeah.
it's the idea that, if we're going to help each other, then we can all grow and get
Yes.
somewhere rather than this
Yeah.
idea that, no, I have to get there and at the
Yeah.
expense of other people,
Yeah.
right? So it sounds like continuing to encourage, ourselves first
Yep.
and practicing that, and then as a community
We
encourage
can
each
encourage
other
others.
and
Yeah.
help each other. Yeah.
It's also like checking our egos too. I feel like being a Christian helps with that because God always talks about pride and like being humble. Like I think some people can look at it as a bad thing, like God wants us to just stay like meek and not have confidence. That's not true. He wants us to have confidence, but it's also checking your ego. Like, you know, I think ego has a lot to do with it, thinking I have to be the best, it's only me who can be successful and no one else can do it. But it's like someone else deserves to be successful too, because we're all God's children. So it's like checking that within us, you know, all the time, you know. I have a
Hmm.
friend who's a pastor and we were talking about that, and it's, yeah, it's checking ourselves, like God will lift us up in due time.
Yes, yes, definitely. So being willing to celebrate other people, right? And
Yes.
and I remember seeing a few posts, right, about that and the idea that, people can get really jealous of another
Yeah.
person's success if they're not doing really well in their own sort of goals and things that they're trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
And there was a post that talked about this idea of celebrate with that person because you never
Yeah.
know, they might be able to help you along your
Yeah.
journey,
It's
right?
true.
And sort of that positivity that you're putting into yourself when you can open yourself up to celebrate another person's success gives you ammunition to and drive,
Yes.
motivation to keep, working at your own, right?
Yeah.
So I
When
thought
I
that was
write my
interesting.
posts, like sometimes when they're so vulnerable, like I'm just like, oh my goodness, should I delete it? Because you feel exposed. Like I know the one you're talking about, where I was talking about another woman's success is proof that you can do it too. Because I found
Mhm.
myself struggling with that, like envy and just kind of, and I hate that word because it's so ugly. But I feel like God knew that we would have these feelings, like where it's just like you feel threatened or you feel like you're not enough. So that's why I wrote the post, because I'm just like, this is something I'm trying to overcome within myself. I've been seeing it and I'm just like, you know what? I don't want this to be a repetitive thing for me. So let me just work on it. Like, you know, that ego check and just knowing that like sometimes God allows another woman to do it first so that you can support them and so that they can teach you. Like I feel like sometimes we think that we get our gifts just for ourselves, but it's God who gives us the gifts so that we can help each other. So it's like, and you'll be okay, like God will help you. That's where the fear I think comes from. Like she got all the blessings, I'm not going to get any, you know, she's already doing better than me, so that means I'm not enough. But God will bless you in your own way. So I
Mhm.
feel like that's the message.
Right. I really like that spin on it. So that idea of not just celebrating them just for purely celebrating them, but also that idea that, if you celebrate them, then there's a possible teaching moment and
Yeah,
mentorship that can happen because you can look and see how did they do it? How can it help
exactly.
me to be able to identify how I can do it too?
Yes, I
Mm,
agree.
mm.
That's what it is.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This is so, inspirational, I would say. I think there's a lot
No
of,
problem.
millennials out there who are struggling, I think, with transitions in their life,
It's hard.
right? And needing to figure out the next step. What's going to happen
It's
after high
hard.
school? What's
It's
going to
hard.
happen after university while I'm in school, relationships, all these different things are going on, right? So if there can be a space like your space that can help people to sort of just be like, oh, I don't have to carry this weight,
Yeah,
of my worries and my fears, and sort of get renewed with, a positive message. And I think it can be really helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just trying to be more vulnerable. But like I said, sometimes when it's too vulnerable, you do feel exposed. But
Yeah.
then I had a friend, he's my editor, like he helps me with like writing the editing the post. And he's like, you know what? That's what your page is about, like being more vulnerable. So it's like then I just leave it there and then I'll see someone and they'll comment and they'll say, oh, I agree with this. So I'm like, okay, you know what? It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay because I'm not the only one struggling. I think when we go through our struggles, especially as Christians, we think, man, I'm so this is so sinly. This is terrible, but it's like there's other people going through it as well, so it's okay. It's okay.
Yes, definitely. No, that vulnerability that you're talking about. And a lot of times people don't recognize that vulnerability is strength, right?
It is
That's the
strength.
whole thing about what Brene Brown preaches all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Recognizing that by you sharing your vulnerability, you're strengthening another person and you're reducing the stigma for yourself, right?
Yes, I
And the
agree.
shame.
I agree. Being more open and just you're healing in a way, because like when I'll do posts, like the last post I did, which was about like their another woman's success is proof that you can do it. I felt like that was like, wow, that was like a therapy moment where it was like, okay, like, we're kind of coming together as a community and talking about this in the post. It's like, it's okay, this is something that a lot of women struggle with, and it's like we're bringing it to the light and we're going to work through it. So
Definitely, definitely. All right. So, Bria, I wanted to find out from you if you had any tips. I know your page is filled with a lot of tips, so we'll be
mhm.
sharing Bria's Instagram, account in the description below, so you can go check her out. But Bria, if you had any tips that you can leave for people that are listening to this post, maybe it's
Mhm.
women, maybe it's millennial women, maybe it's millennial women with mental health challenges, or millennial
Mhm.
women that just feel a sense of, low self-worth, and could use a pick-me-up. What are some tips that you can give to them?
Okay, so when it comes to feelings of low self worth, I would say that it's a process, like it's a journey. Like it's
Mhm.
okay to have days where you question yourselves, where it's like, am I enough? Or not that you want to stay there, but
Yeah.
don't beat yourself up if you have those moments, because we have to remember that when it comes to like even our childhoods, we didn't have a lot of that encouragement. Like we're doing this ourselves. Like the millennials are the generation where self-care, self-love, this is something that we're now doing for ourselves. We didn't necessarily get that enforcement when we were younger. So it's a heavy burden to bear. It's a heavy weight to bear for us. So it's like just be patient with yourself and your journey and invite God into your life. I think that's important. Like having God in my life and saying that I wanted to be saved was
Mhm.
the biggest turning point for me, because I feel like when you're not doing it God's way and you're looking to the world for validation, it will weigh you down. It will weigh you down. You'll get lost. I feel like that's the reason why I wanted to actually get saved for the most part, because it's like I found myself going in a direction where I wanted to fit in. And it's like God pulled me back and it's just like, I have purpose for you. This is not the plan that I have for you. You can get lost, like looking to the world for validation. It can get lonely. So I think inviting God into your life and just following his lead, even though sometimes it can feel hard and lonely, knowing that he has a plan for you. In terms of mental illness, I would say talking about it and sharing your story, like whether it's through writing a YouTube video, speak about it. Don't be ashamed because someone else is going through that. I know as a Black woman coming from a Caribbean background, there's a stigma. For the most part, there is always going to be a little bit of a stigma, but the more we speak about it, the more we make someone feel less alone. And you're not abnormal for dealing with depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. Like things happen. Like I never thought I would get depression. I never thought I would be taking medication every day for my depression, which is not something I tell people very often,
Yeah.
but it's just, things happen, but God can use a bad thing and make it into something good. So share your story if you're comfortable. And yeah, I think that's what I would say for now.
Right. Thank you
God
so
is big
much.
though. If you're
God is
taking
big.
that step and you want to follow God, it's hard. The temptations are real. Being a young 20 something, we're in an over sexualized world where everyone, am I sexy enough? Am I this enough? But following God's lead can really protect you from a lot of things. Like I'm 26, I haven't even been to a club. Like I haven't been to a club. Like there's a lot of things that I didn't do, but it's like now that I look back, God had me on a path. I wouldn't be able to have a page if I was saying, "Oh, I'm not good enough. Let me just follow everyone else."
Mhm.
So follow God's lead. There's a lot of protection.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing your
No
story with
problem.
us, Bria, and for those
Problem.
tips. You know, we hope that you enjoyed our show today. We are
I
going to
did.
put Bria's, Instagram handle in the description below, so you can go and contact her. You can also go and follow her on Instagram so that you can get some great inspiration and some motivation from her page. Thank you so much again,
Thank you
Bria.
so much, Trisha. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, until next time, take care.